all progress takes place outside your comfort zone. Good morning, and it's the 28th day in the month of October 2021, Thursday, and your regular faces are here to review papers and stories making headlines on all our national dailies alongside with you. I'm Olabi Tosin, and I'll be reviewing paper with Boki. And good morning, Bok.
Good morning, Tosin.
Morning, hope you slept well.
Yes, I did.
Yes, we have a whole lot of papers to review this morning. Let's start with the Daily Times newspaper.
Yes, on the Daily Times today, we have the big story on tension in varsities over sharing formula of 22.1 billion naira earned allowances. As SSANU NASU gave federal government 2-week ultimatum to reverse sharing formula. Fresh tension is looming in universities and inter-university centers across the country over the sharing formula of 22.1 billion naira recently released by the federal government for payment of earned allowances for university staff. According to the current sharing formula, Academic Staff Union of Universities (ASU) is allocated 75% of the national earning, while the other three unions of non-academic staff, Union of Education and Associated Institutions, NASU, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, and the National Association of Academic Technologists, NAAT, are to share the remaining 25% amongst themselves. The sharing formula has caused a serious tension among the unions, as NASU and SSANU unions under the umbrella of the Joint Action Committee (JAC) have issued 2 weeks ultimatum to the federal government to release what they described as injustice method out to them. The union have strongly warned that failure to address the situation could lead to industrial crisis in the Nigerian university system. Senate rejects Buhari's $700 loan request. Summon Water Resources Minister, demands previous loans details, and OK's 1,000 naira daily feeding allowance for prison inmates. On COVID-19, Sanwo-Olu launches mass vaccination program. There is possibility of the fourth wave of coronavirus COVID-19 as the Yuletide approaches, Lagos State government declared on Wednesday. And on business, CBN cautions Nigerians over emergence of fake e-naira platforms. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has cautioned Nigerians against falling prey to the ploys of fraudsters, as the fake e-naira platforms have flooded the online space following the launch of the digital currency on Monday. The last story on the Daily Times says AU suspends Sudan over military coup. These are all the stories making headline, where we have a picture story here of President Muhammadu Buhari, Chairman and CEO of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, Chairman Boa Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, and other members of the delegation at the 5th Future Investment Initiative Summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You can do well to get the Daily Times for today, 28th October, and read more detail of stories that interest you.
Thank you, Bok. And on the Guardian newspaper, we have the 53rd edition of the editorial, which says federalism is the answer after all. Orchestrated ambiguities and impunity, even in the face of provisions of the basic law of the land, is part of the problem of the Nigerian Federation. They are out to singe through the known notional content of federalism. They are a product of the logic of domination by a section in a multinational entity, and consequently the distrust and conflict bedeviling the country. The controversy-marred 2020 recruitment of 10,000 personnel into the Nigerian police exemplified the point being made. According to a recent statement by the police spokesman, Frank Mba, that controversial exercise is about to be resolved. The matter was that the former Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, usurped the statutory role of the Police Service Commission, a move that was challenged by the latter through the appeal court, which by unanimous decision upheld the statutory role of the Police Service Commission to recruit personnel for the NPE. The police had gone to Supreme Court on the matter, but the matter was abandoned following the removal of the then IGP. In what will appear a dramatic resolution of the matter, the PSC has now made arrangements to conclude the 2020 recruitment of 10,000 constables, which was earlier suspended on account of the controversy and the consequent litigation. It is hoped that police recruitment should be domiciled in its statutory locale, even as President Muhammadu Buhari pledges yearly recruitment to boost the strength of the police in the country. The controversy raised a number of questions about federalism and its subversion in practice, whose responsibilities to recruit into the police force. Is police recruitment not a federal character issue beyond the reposition of the responsibility for recruitment? Has the mode of running the police not been deep? This is a question, and more details are in page 18 of the Guardian newspaper. And the big story says, ahead G20 summit, ILO, others demand COVID-19 vaccine justice. And the rider goes toss. G20 members have received 15 times more vaccine doses than African countries. Of 6.9 billion vaccine doses globally, only 2% administered in Africa. 2.88 million Nigerians fully vaccinated, representing 1.4% of population. ILO says pandemic impact on jobs worse than expected. Global labor market hamstrung by unequal vaccine distribution, and African leaders must demand equal access to vaccines, says Amnesty International. Unless the world adopts universal availability of COVID-19 vaccines by ending vaccines apatheia, the global economic recovery will be much slower than expected. Director General of the International Labour Organization, Guy Ryder, has said in an exclusive interview with The Guardian yesterday, who spoke from the Geneva, Switzerland office, heads to Rome, Italy, today to attend the G20 summit, which holds from October 30 to 31st. He said ILO will preach the gospel of vaccine justice to draw the attention of the global leaders to the dangers and lack of vaccine poses to the rest of the world. He told The Guardian, ILO will certainly be advocating in favor of universal access on equitable basis to vaccines, regardless of economic possibilities and economic needs of the people concerned. So our job is to speak in favor of what is called vaccine justice. We will be advocating that the first and second jabs be made available in all countries of the world. Federal government to review licenses of discos, gencos over poor performances. There are indications that the federal government may in the coming weeks take punitive measures over the operating license of some power distribution discos and generation gencos companies. The Guardian gathered these may not be unconnected with the poor performances by some critical stakeholders in the value chain. While President Muhammadu Buhari had recently terminated the appointment of the minister in charge of power, appointing Abubakar Aliyu to act as the new minister, Nigerian power sector has failed to perform years after privatization, as level of power supply to homes and industries stagnates at about 4,000 megawatts. Aliyu yesterday, in a document made available to journalists in Abuja, said plans are on the way to decide on the fate of the sector. Women threatens to sue PDP for alleged marginalization at Congress, with details in page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. NNPC gets nod to fix 21 roads at 621 billion naira. Court freezes bank account of Benue government firm over failure to pay back loan. And Akeredolu explains why Fayemi was absent during visit to Tinubu. The last story on the Guardian newspaper, INEC free to transmit Anambra election results electronically, says Gaya. And that's all the news making headlines on the Guardian newspaper.
And moving on to the Daily Sun. Federal government blows 1.35 trillion naira on fuel subsidy this year to spend another 1.35 trillion naira before July 2022. And coming from Anambra, Ohaneze begs IPOB to suspend planned lockdown, demands emergency Igbo leaders meeting. NPC seeks law to regulate licensed journalists. On e-Naira, CBN apologizes for difficulty in app downloads. Gunmen kill vigilante. 6 others burn houses in Imo, Kogi. Kidnap 8, demand 50 million naira ransom in Ekiti. ABUAD performs first kidney transplant. More detail of this story you can find on the Daily Sun. High Commission accuses The Economist of bias in reporting Nigeria. Thumbs up for Buhari on achievements. London court slams 100,000 euros. I beg your pardon, I take that again. London court slams 100,000 euros damages on blogger over publications against Pastor Olukoya. Oba of Benin receives bronze stolen from palace in 1897 today. FED gives NNPC nod to fix 21 federal roads at 621.2 billion naira. OK's 4 billion naira for transmission line. Substations in Anambra, Enugu, 377.6 million naira for transformers in Akure, Benin substations. And the last story on drug addiction, NDLEA plans 6 rehab centers across Nigeria. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, plans to establish 6 standard rehabilitation centers, 1 in each geopolitical zone of Nigeria, as part of efforts to treat the high number of persons suffering drug addiction in the country. The chairman and chief executive of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa, made the disclosure in Abuja yesterday as special guest of honor at the 5th Biennial National Symposium on Drugs and Drug Policy in Nigeria, organized by the Center for Research and Information on Substance Abuse, CRISA. In a statement by Mr. Fayemi Babafemi, Director Media and Advocacy, NDLEA, General Marwa said substance use and abuse around the world, including Nigeria, is on the increase in terms of the proportion of the world's population. Findings from the National Drug Use Survey 2018 conducted by the UNODC revealed that 14.4% of 14.3 million Nigerians aged 15 to 64 years had used a psychoactive substance in the past year for non-medical purposes, meaning that 1 in 7 persons has used some substances other than alcohol and tobacco. More worrisome is the finding that among every 4 drug users in Nigeria, 1 is a woman. Above findings of the survey by UNODC give a troubling portrait of drug abuse in Nigeria, and we can no longer live in denial that Nigeria has a thriving illicit drug culture. USA companies need customer service reps to work from home. Hourly pay in $13 per hour, must have a quiet environment to work, internet access, and others. He said as part of efforts to stem the tide, the agency has proposed the construction of 6 standard rehabilitation centers across the 6 geopolitical zones in the country, beginning from next year. He said 3 of the centers will start next year as already proposed in the 2022 budget. And these are all the stories making headline on Daily Sun. Do well to get the paper and read more details of stories that interest you, as you can also call us as well on the show later when our phone lines will be open.
Thank you, Brock. Moving to Nigerian Tribune. EFCC displays CD of 51,933 pages depicting contents of Naira Marley's iPhone. Abuad records first kidney transplant, and it's a good one coming from Nigeria, with details in page 14. Hassan Odukalit is single largest shareholder, First Bank Nigerian Holdings, tell NGX. E-Naira wallet no longer on Google Play Store as CBN warns of fake social media handles. Land tussle, 6 feared killed, several missing as gunmen attack Kogi community. Suspected smugglers kill custom officer in Ogun. And $200 million mosquito nets loan request not from us, coming from NPHCDA. Screening of newborn babies for sickle cell disease debuts in Nigeria, 6 other African countries. And coming from Anambra State, we have polling units should be made accessible, National Assembly tells service chiefs. Court freezes bank accounts of Benue government firm over failure to pay bank loan. And coming from Ekiti State, we have here we have Ekiti saved over 30 billion naira in contract estimated in 3 years. And the big story on the Nigerian Tribune says NNPC takes over 21 federal roads to spend 621.2 billion naira. The rider says Lagos Badagry Expressway, Ibadan, Ilorin, Oyo, Ogbomosho section. Aba, Ikotopene, Ilorin, Jeba, Mokwa, Bokani section 1 and 2, while Zaria to Funtua, Gusau, Sokoto, and others. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has taken over the reconstruction of 21 federal roads across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The approval was given at the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by Vice President Yemi Osibanjo at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, yesterday. Briefing State House correspondent at the end of the council meeting, the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola San, said the selected 21 roads totaled 1,804.6 kilometers. The minister said it was a strategic intervention under the federal government road infrastructure and refreshment tax credit scheme. He explained that it was under Executive Order 7 that allowed the private sector to deploy in advance the taxes they would pay for infrastructure development. He said 9 of the selected projects are in North Central, 3 in Northeast, 2 in Northwest, 2 in Southeast, and 3 in South-South, and 2 in Southwest. Fashola said he presented 3 memoranda to the council that was approved, explaining that 2 of the memoranda were on road contract. He said the first memorandum had to do with a section of Calabar-Ikom-Ogoja Road, especially the section to Apet Central, where there was a problem with the steel reinforced drain discovered there. Still on the Tribune newspaper, the last story says suspected smugglers kill custom officer in Ogun. And those are all the stories making headlines on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper.
And on The Nation, we have the big story here saying governors lobby senators, reps against direct primaries. We have gone far with Electoral Act amendments, says Senate spokesman. And on IPOP threads, Ohaneze calls for urgent political solution. Hours after launch, e-Naira app down on Google Play Store. The Central Bank of Nigeria says it will not bear any liability for any interruption, loss of revenue, or loss of services arising from the use of the e-Naira website. This is just as the e-Naira Speed Wallet disappeared from the Google Play Store on Wednesday after over 100,000 users had downloaded it. The development came about 48 hours after the e-Naira app was launched by the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, at the State House, Abuja. Vice President Yemi Osibanjo, the Governor of the CBN, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and top officials of the federal government were in attendance. In his address, the President said the e-currency would help increase remittances, foster cross-border trade, improve financial inclusion, make monetary policy more effective, and enable the government to send direct payments to citizens eligible for specific welfare programs. According to him, the digital currency will help move many more people and businesses from the informal into the formal sector, thereby increasing the country's tax base. On Tuesday, over 100,000 downloads were recorded on the e-Naira app amid negative reviews and low rating. On Wednesday, barely 48 hours after the launch, the e-Naira wallet was removed from the Google Play Store. The spokesperson for the CBN, Mr. Osita Nwanisobi, said the development was to enable the app to be upgraded. There is an upgrade going at the moment by Google. Try it in the next few hours, Nwanisobi told one of our correspondents on Wednesday when asked to explain why the app could not be found on the Play Store. Federal government targets 7,000 megawatts with TCN discourse upgrade. And on Anambra 2021, Why I Want to Be Governor by Soludo. INEC free to transmit poll results electronically. ADC candidate unveils Nwana model. NNPC to fix Lagos, Badagry, Ibadan, Ilorin, 19 other roads. Oil giant to use 612 billion naira tax liabilities. First Bank of Nigeria Holdings affirms Hassan Odukale as single largest shareholder. BOT chair Secondus wrong to sue PDP, and varsity workers threaten strike. UK Varsity Paris Museum return looted artifacts to Nigeria. And 8 funeral guests kidnapped in Ekiti. The last story here says doctors kick against coup in Sudan. These are all the stories making headline on the Nation newspaper for today, 28th October 2021.
And for First newspaper, 50 days on, former Senator Effiong still with kidnappers. Shehu Sani expressed grave concern. And 126 years after, Cambridge returns Okuko, Benin's looted artifacts. The big story says Zamfara bandits now in house-to-house raid. The rider says kill 7, steal 1,500 cows, sheep in single attack. Suspension of telephone network yet to make impact. Bandits have invaded Yambuki village in the Gzurmi local government area of Zamfara state, killing 7 people and stealing 1,500 cows and sheep. An indigene of the village, Garba Musa, told our correspondent that the bandits stormed the village on Tuesday night, shooting indiscriminately. Musa said immediately they arrived, they opened fire on anyone they could see. Everybody ran helter-skelter to protect themselves. They later moved from house to house searching for foodstuff and animals, and also broke many shops. They also rustled over 1,500 domestic animals like cows, sheep and goats. He added that after the bandit left the village, the residents came out from hiding and discovered that 7 people had been shot dead, while others sustained injuries. We have buried the 7 people, but the number of casualties could be more than this because some people ran to the bush and have yet to be seen. The spokesman for police in the state, SP Mohammed Shehu, confirmed the attack, and he added that the Commissioner of Police has already deployed enough police personnel in the area in order to restore peace. Alleged fraud. Federal government auctions Dizani's buildings, jewelries and brass. Niger Delta DQ rejoices as General Boylove bags first-class degree, and Governor Fayemi to honor Adebayo, Fayoshe, Oni and others. More witnesses testify against Naira Marley in internet fraud case. And the last story on the First newspaper says, coming from Ogun State, man arraigned for texting "good morning babe" to housewife. And those are all the stories making headlines on the First newspaper, but we'll be right back after this timeout. Welcome back. We're still on the morning show from the Dailies, where we review stories making headlines on all our national papers. And at this point in time, our phone lines are open and you can call in to air your views on stories that interest you. But let's continue with the reviews.
Yes, on the Vanguard, rather, we have the big story on ending insecurity, which says gunmen kill 13 in Zamfara, Kogi, 8 abducted in Ekiti. 6 killed, palaces of traditional rulers, houses razed in Kogi community. 7 killed in Zamfara community, livestock rustled. 8 abducted in Ekiti, 50 million naira ransom demanded. Gunmen have killed no fewer than 13 persons, razed houses, rustled cattle in Kogi and Zamfara states since Monday, abducting 8 in Ekiti and demanding 50 million naira ransom to free their captives. While 6 were killed and houses razed in Kogi, life was snuffed out of 7 in Zamfara state, where livestock was also rustled. In Ekiti state, the gunmen kidnapped at least 6 persons and demanded a ransom of 50 million naira to effect their release. Newsmen gathered that 6 persons were killed in a coordinated attack on Bagana community in Omala local government area of Kogi state. Houses were also burned. The latest attack came barely a month after 9 persons were killed in the area, while property worth millions of naira were destroyed as hundreds of inhabitants fled to seek refuge in neighboring communities. The gunmen were said to have gone first to the palace of one of the traditional rulers of the community, the Otutu Batu of Bagana, Chief Salifu Ayebe, whose stool was graded 3rd class just a week ago. They reportedly set the palace ablaze and in the process shot dead 3 persons, including one Madam Achibe Ali, popularly known as Mama Teacher. It was learned rather that the attack was linked to a tussle for the stool of the community, as those opposed to the recent grading had planned to attack the traditional ruler during the proposed ceremony of the 3rd class title. Coming from Olufason, Nigeria can only perfect its imperfect union through negotiations, which is why Nigeria's unity is negotiable. 13% derivation, host communities slam Niger Delta governors, seeks review. And court freezes Benue government firms' accounts over failure to repay loan. Why capital expenditure does not match revenue, says federal government. And PDP on beat as appeal court delivers ruling today. I was never invited by EFCC. This is coming from Anyin. Still on Anambra, rethink 7-day sit at home. Ohaneze begs IPOB. On strike, fresh tension looms in varsities over sharing formula of 22.1 billion naira earned allowances. And the last story here says CBN alerts public of fake e-naira Twitter handle. These are all the stories making headline on the Vanguard.
And for the Punch newspaper, after 48 hours, e-naira app removed from Google Store amid criticism. Petrol subsidy may climb to 3 trillion naira in 1 year, coming from NNPC, and $418 million deduction suspended as federal government state meets for FAAC today. NNPC will construct 21 federal roads with 621.2 billion naira in 3 years, coming from Fashola. And Anambra decides 2021. INEC can transmit Anambra election result electronically, coming from the National Assembly. Disrupting election poses serious consequences, Ohaneze tells IPOB, and details of such stories can be found in page 3 and 13 of the Punch newspaper. The screaming headline on the Punch says PDP moves to save convention, pressures secondus over suit. We've received no response to our suit, says Oyetibo. Ruling holds today. Don't make our party ungovernable. Board of Trustee Chair appeals to secondus. Protest over bad Lagos Abeokuta Road. Unfortunate political, coming from Abiodun. And Afe Babalola hails Abwad as Vasti performs first kidney transplant. Man 38 charged with misconduct for sending seductive message to Ogun housewife. Again, abductors kidnapped 8 residents preparing for burial, demand 50 million naira in Ekiti local government. Hassan Odukale outguns Otedola, buys First Bank Nigeria Holdings single largest stake. Air Force officials on BRT lane kills Lagos artist, offer family 200,000 naira. The last story on the Punch newspaper says, fire me away to Port Harcourt during Southwest Governor's visit to Tinubu, coming from Akere Dolu. Details can be found on page 30, and those are all the stories making headlines on the Punch newspaper.
And moving on to Blueprint. Amid outcry, fake OK 621 billion naira NNPC fund to fix 21 roads. Niger tops with 9 projects. NLC protests poor state of Lagos. Abeokuta axis traders. Imo residents lament. 4 billion naira approved for transmission line substations in Anambra, Enugu, and 377.6 million naira for transformers in Akure, Benin substations. 48 hours after launch, scammers hijack e-Naira. CBN alerts Nigerians. Nigeria to invest $3 billion on refineries to meet 17.3 million naira. I beg your pardon, I take that again. Nigeria to invest $3 billion on refineries to meet 17.3 million metric tons supply. Former Agric Minister Abaruma dies in London. Gunmen kidnap 8 in Ekiti, demand 50 million naira ransom. Anxiety as survey reveals 200% bread price hike December. Multiple taxation, high cost of materials, our challenge. This is coming from bakers. Consequence of deliberating effects of IMF World Bank prescriptions. This is a report coming from PAACA. Senate jacks up prisoners' feeding costs to 1,000 naira per day. NDIC blames unemployment on cybercrime in Nigeria. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation (NDIC) has listed unemployment, the quest for wealth, lack of strong cybercrime laws, and inadequate security on personal device as major key factors contributing to the increase in cybercrime in the country. Head Information Technology Department of NDIC, Mr. Made Ohunwagbo, who stated this while addressing financial journalists in Gombe, said accessibility to data and mobile services, get-rich-quick mentality, as well as dearth of skilled personnel that can detect and track cyber criminals, create opportunity for people to engage in cybercrime. He further said that apart from bad influences that are accepted in the society, low-level collaboration among jurisdictions on cybercrime also help to make cybercrime a significant problem in the country. He, however, said that some cybercrime that affecting business and individuals include pushing attack, website spoofing, ransomware, and malware attacks. Making presentations on cybercrime and cyber risk landscape in Nigeria and the need for consumer protection, he said cybercrime is a fast-growing type of crime, adding that more and more criminals are exploiting the speed, convenience, and anonymity of the internet to commit diverse range of criminal activities that know no borders, either physical or virtual, cause serious harm and pose very real threats to unsuspecting victims. On COVID-19, 180,000 health workers died globally in 16 months. This is a report coming from the World Health Organization. And the last story still on IPOB sit at home. Ohanaeze calls for governors leaders meeting. These are all the stories we have on the blueprint.
And on Nigerian News Direct, Olams in Ogun State opens portal for land acquisitions, grant amnesty to encroachers. Senate approves 1,000 naira daily allowance for prisoners. And the big story still on Federal Executive Council approves NNPC's 612.2 billion naira request for 21 roads. NNPC fake shows proactiveness and foresight coming from Korodu. Fayemi flags of IPP project to address shortage of power supply. Nigeria is going through turbulent times economically, coming from an MBPC member. NCC telecom regulators set to combat e-fraud, standardized regional roaming tariffs. And the last story says Okonjo-Iweala others for CIBN Fellowship Award, with details in page 14. And those are all the stories making headlines on the Nigerian News Direct.
And on the New Telegraph, the big story says Anambra bows to IPOB, adopts Saturday school. As residents observed stay at home on Mondays out of fear, National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC meets Commission's leadership, security heads. We've recovered from attacks on our facilities, says Yakubu. November 6 poll under threat, Igbo elders. Ohanaeze appeals to IPOB, urges Umahi to summon Southeast leaders meeting. On budget, defense, police, EFCC orders to spend 1.26 billion naira on bank charges, insurance. It's illegal to pay subsidy with Federation account funds, says Sanusi. Delta to resume Lagos-New York service December. And on Forex, MPC members seek effective monitoring of banks. Strike looms in varsities over 22.1 billion naira earned allowances sharing formula, while Senate increases prisoners feeding to 1,000 naira per day. The last story on study: cataracts raise death rates from heart disease. These are all the stories making headline on New Telegraph.
And on Daily Independent newspaper, still coming from Anambra Guba poll, Ohaneze urges IPOB to cancel 7 days sit-at-home order. Asks Southeast governors to convene emergency stakeholders meeting. We've recovered from attack on our facilities, coming from INEC. First Bank confirms Odukale as single largest shareholders, rank Otedola second. The big story still on NNPC gets approval to fix 21 federal roads at 621.2 billion naira. Federal Executive Council okays 4 billion naira for transmission line substation in Anambra and Enugu. Senate rejects Buhari's $700 million loan request, summons minister. Stop using security operatives to intimidate judges, Wike tells federal government. And on strike, sharing formula of 22.1 billion naira earned allowances, brewing crisis in varsities. Afe Bobolola multi-system performs first kidney transplant, and PDP convention last-minute efforts to dissuade secondos fail as appeal court rules today. Federal government puts Dizani's property for sale. Smugglers attack custom officers, kill one, another missing. And the last story on the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, MultiChoice Africa rejects TAT ruling on $342 million VAT bill, with the details in page 2 of the Daily Independent newspaper. And those are all the package on the Daily Independent newspaper.
And on Business Day, which is the last paper we're reviewing this morning, it says Hassan Odukale built First Bank majority stake in less than a year. While FX scarcity puts importers on edge ahead Yuletide. Few weeks into the festive season, importers are presently agitating as they now find it difficult to access foreign exchange needed to bring in vehicles, finished products, semi-finished goods, and even raw materials for local industries. While the last story still on eNaira, it says eNaira app bars 40 million unbanked Nigerians. These are all the stories making headline on Business Day.
Thank you, Buck, for doing this with me. Any words for our viewers?
As I will always maintain, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Let's do well to have this understanding through the grace of God, and we shall come together in peace.
We'll come together in peace, bloom wherever you are planted. Have a good morning and have a blessed day.